I can't really point to a lot of failure. But I think it's all in how I choose to look at certain circumstances. Because I'm not perfect. I've faced adversity. I've disappointed people. When I think about the term failure, I haven't really failed at a lot of things because I've just stuck with it until I got over the hump. This is Caesar Walker, the cool, calm, collected one.
And I'm Ronnie Gatry, the emotional one.
And we are the Tipping Point Podcast, your source for the black male's perspective.
Tipping Point Podcast.
When we start talking about failure, for me, it seems so definitive when I hear that word failure, right? It's almost like it's a period at the end of the sentence. So when you think about the failures in your life, what is it about that makes you say that was a failure?
Simple as I can put it, an expectation or series of expectations were not met.
Okay. Gotcha. So when those aren't met, how do you feel?
Oh, dude, you feel like, or if you're me, you feel like you're useless. You know, and that's one of my things that I'll give myself some credit I'm growing out of. Mm-hmm. But there was a point in my life to where my failures, they kind of determined who I was. And there was no emphasis placed on the other side of that. So, I'd be the guy to say, well, man, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I didn't go off to college when all my friends were going off to college. You know what I mean? I failed. You know? Yeah. You know what I mean? I was like, well, I'm probably going to be a bum. These are real thoughts that I had. And, I'm hearing, even from you to a degree, I'm hearing about all these college life experiences. Well, man, why did I choose to work? But fast forward, now the maturity is entered the chat. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, okay, I saw it as a failure at the time because I wasn't living these college experiences or having all that. But man, when I closed on that house, there wasn't many other folks doing that.
Right.
And looking financially, like there wasn't this looming debt. Nothing against it if you are, but I saw
that's
little
the thing for sure.
Yeah, I saw little remnants of success from what I deemed a failure for whatever reason.
Yeah, I struggled with that when you mentioned the topic. I've had failure. Don't get me I can think about failed relationships, job opportunity I didn't get. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I've had that, but I can't really point to, especially in my adult life, I can't really point to a lot of failure.
Okay.
But
I got enough to carry us if we need it.
But I think it's all in how I choose to look at certain circumstances. I think that's what it is because I'm not perfect. I've faced adversity. I've had disappointments. Right? I've disappointed people. I've disappointed myself. I've disappointed others have disappointed. I'm experiencing what other people are experiencing. But when I think about, like I just said earlier, when I think about the term failure, I haven't really failed at a lot of things because I've just stuck with it until I got over the hump.
Right.
That's kind of been the story of my life in a sense. Now, were there disappointments along the way? For sure. For example, we talked about this a few weeks ago, how, I started a health journey to get in shape, get physically fit, and I hit a wall. Well, that could be considered failure because I hadn't reached a milestone by a certain point, right? And I talked about the frustrations that I've dealt with just dealing with that, working out sometimes twice a day, eating right. But then I get on the scale and it hasn't moved for weeks. That can feel like failure. But fast forward to today, I've knocked that wall down. So in the grand scheme of things, did I fail? Really? That's kind of how I look at it. Like, I still got to the goal. Now, was it when I wanted to? No, but that's kind of the story of life in general, right? oftentimes things aren't going to go as planned in the way you charted it out, but you still run the play, right? And so for me, it's when I look at certain things I wanted to do, like I wanted to be married. Okay, I'm married, success, having a good marriage with that, bringing a life into this world. Like that's going to be awesome, right? I look at the things I've done, a lot of the things that I wanted to do in my life. So it's very few things I look back on. Even some of the ideas I've given you just in confidence, I still may come back to some of those things. I'm too busy having fun with some of these other opportunities that have come my way. So when I look at my life, man, yeah, I've had some vices that I've even shared on the podcast, addictions, pornography, that sort of thing, and how that caused problems in my marriage. Just learning how to be a husband and the pitfalls that came with that, right?
Right.
But I always look at it like a course of a game. Especially like if it's basketball, there's highs and lows. But the team that wins, we don't spend time weeks down the road as fans or spectators talking about or belaboring the fact that they may have been down by 10, 15 points in that game. What do we care about at the end of the day?
You got the dub.
That's how I look at life. Did you get the dub? Did you keep playing through it? Right? And so that's kind of just been my attitude when it comes to the failures or the disappointments. It's, did you play through it though? Because the game is still going on. And that's always been my mentality. And so when I look back on, like when I ask that, what are your failures? I can give you my disappointments. I can give you the times that I didn't meet expectations, because when you look at the definition of failure, it just says an expectation that isn't met. So by definition, yeah, I've had plenty of failures, but I just don't look at it that way. Because, and I'll share some thoughts why, but just your thoughts on that.
Well, I think for it to constitute as a failure, there's got to be like an end of a period of something.
Sure.
You think about another thing I can relate to. In school, you have a test.
Oh, sure.
And you're graded. Sure. And I got my fair share of Fs. I mean, how honest are we being here, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So like when I transfer that over to life, it has to apply to certain periods of time.
Okay.
Life is, for most of us, prayerfully a marathon. It's a big picture perspective.
I agree. But
I still think there are key components in life to where you're evaluated. You either passed or failed.
Sure.
Now, it doesn't mean you can't take the test again.
Sure.
But you're being graded.
Sure.
Whether you grade yourself or someone else grades you, like I think about my my very interesting employment history. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been fired before.
Yeah.
I've been fired for not meeting a set of expectations. There's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
I failed.
Yeah.
But it's cool because you can mix and mingle these two concepts.
Mm-hmm.
The one you just brilliantly laid out and the one that I'm struggling through. because thinking of my employment history, yeah, I've been fired, but man, that next job, I knew if I did things this way, I'd probably end up the same way. So let me not do that.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for those failures.
Does when you look back on the failures, the ones that you learn from grew from, does it change how you look at those failures? 100%.
100%. You almost have to reclassify them. I knew that's where you were going to go, Walker. I knew this when I texted you on Tuesday. You ain't fooling nobody.
But you see what I'm saying?
I'm with you 100% though.
Like I got better when I met my wife because of the failures I experienced in my past relationships. And it wasn't because of the other women. I graded my own paper. And I had to mark it up. I grabbed a red ink and I got the marking up.
That'd be the worst test.
Right?
Yeah.
And so And so for me, when I look back on it, yeah, you're right. You're going to hit some moments and periods in your life where it's hard to glean any positivity from it, right? But again, in retrospect, if you take those lessons and you choose to learn, if you have the mentality that I will not be back here again, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then we know life comes. And again, I have a hard time classifying some things as failures, especially when it's things outside of your control.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like people getting laid off from work. What could you have done to prevent those types of things?
I don't know. I think I had opportunities.
I'm just saying in general.
Oh,
just in general.
I thought you were.
No, I'm not talking about you.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying in general. I'm just saying a company's hitting a tough time. We got to lay off some folks,
right?
And they call your name,
right? You perform well.
What could you have done?
Do you qualify that as a failure? Is what you're asking,
right? What do you think, Black? You think that? Do you? I struggle with looking at certain things across the board that's a failure just because it didn't meet an expectation. I struggle with that because in some cases. Again, if I fail a test, who failed it? I failed it.
You did, yeah.
Right? I got to hold myself accountable for the fact that I was not prepared or didn't have the information ready to handle this test. Right?
Right.
But when certain things in life happen to you, I want to make sure we're operating with the same understanding of what failure really is.
When he's done, please remind me of something I want to throw at you.
Okay.
Hopefully.
You can
I'll
go
remember
ahead now
that.
if you want to.
No. We're gonna do this the right way. We're not gonna do this how Gat used to do it.
Yeah, what do you think about the whole the failure? And we can deconstruct it and then kind of talk about how to address it. But just your thoughts about failure, just in general.
I think it's, for me personally, it's good for me to view something as a failure and call it a failure for me to move past it. So one of my early failures was that I went off to that ASU school that I love so much,
Alabama State University,
but I had to come back because it was a failure.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop me from going to school. But
look at you now, Black. Lord have mercy.
But the thing about it is my career at ASU was done. So I had to move on and try to get my degree elsewhere, which I eventually did, but I still viewed that as a failure because, that's where I was supposed to, I was supposed to graduate from ASU.
Yeah, for sure.
And y'all know my long work history, trying to, spend 10 years trying to get out of one department.
Right.
And, I don't know how much of it was me or how much it was just the company that we worked for. But when I wasn't getting an opportunity, that felt like a failure for a while.
I think a lot of that was you, if I would be honest, because I don't see a lot of people do that from where you came from.
Keep the Point Podcast.